Uh, uh, I would like to call all the dignitaries to the dais, please. Thank you very much.
Please sit down, settle down.
What is the time? What is the time?
We are going to start. Please settle down.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can I have your attention, please? The world is neither unipolar, multipolar, nor chaotic. It's all three at the same time. Joseph S. Nye Jr. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Roshni Mehta alongside my co-host Malvika AM, and it's a true honor and privilege to welcome you to this very special plenary session of VIJIGISHU titled India-Canada Relations in a Shifting Global Order. Amidst an evolving international system marked by multipolarity, economic realignments, and shifting security architectures, the relationship between India and Canada assumes renewed significance. Both countries, rooted in democratic traditions and committed to rules, I will assume, both countries, rooted in democratic traditions and committed to rule-based multilateralism, find themselves navigating a global order where emerging powers, strategic partnerships, and economic diversifications are reshaping diplomacy. Against the backdrop of rising Indo-Pacific imperatives and Western realignment, both capitals now appear poised to operationalize convergence in areas ranging from trade diversification and energy security to counterterrorism and higher education cooperation. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. Nagalakshmi M. Raman, Director and Head of Amity Institute of International Studies, and Dr. Shubham Verma, Assistant Professor AIIS, to felicitate our chair, Dr. Srish K. Pathak. Dr. Srish? Now, I would like to invite Dr. Nagalakshmi M. Raman to felicitate Professor Rekha Saxena, Head of Department of Political Science, University of Delhi. I would like to invite Dr. Shubham Verma to felicitate our next panelist, Dr. Kamran M.K. Mandal, Professor of International Relations at Jadavpur University. Last but not the least, I would request Dr. Shubham Verma to felicitate Dr. Sneha Bhagat, Assistant Professor at the Center for the Study of America, Jawaharlal Nehru University. Now, let me introduce our accomplished panel for today's session. It is my extreme honor to welcome Professor Rekha Saxena, a highly reputed academician of the Department of Political Science at the University of Delhi. An alumna of Hindu College, Professor Saxena has been associated with DU for more than 4 decades, beginning her esteemed teaching career at the St. Stephen's College. In addition to this role, Professor Saxena is the honorary senior advisor at the Forum of Federations in Ottawa and Vice Chairperson of the Center for Multi-Level Federalism in New Delhi. Her extensive expertise in federalism and intergovernmental relations is widely recognized, and she has authored numerous academic articles and over a dozen books on these topics. I then move on to Dr. Kamran N.K. Mondal, Professor of International Relations at Jadavpur University, Kolkata. An accomplished academic, he holds an MPhil and PhD in Canadian Studies from Jawaharlal Nehru University, specializing in Canada foreign policy and West Asian geopolitics. His research spans India foreign policy, international migration, refugee issues, and global security. Dr. Mondal has published extensively, including the book Canada's Foreign Policy and Arab-Israel Conflict, and numerous articles on India's relationship with its neighbors, the EU and the Canada. A recipient of the prestigious European Union Visitors Program Award, he has supervised multiple PhD and MPhil scholars and led research projects funded by ICSSR and UGC and continues to shape policy discourse. Next, we have with us Dr. Sneha Bhagat, an assistant professor at the Center for the Study of Americas, School of International Studies, JNU. She is a faculty member in the Canadian Studies Division, where her expertise is centered on Canadian politics, ethnic politics, federalism, and diasporic studies. An alumna of JNU, Dr. Bhagat holds a PhD in Indo-Pacific Studies. In addition to her work on Canadian and diasporic politics, Dr. Bhagat has a strong academic interest in Indian public policy and administration, a subject she previously taught as a faculty member of the University of Delhi. She is also a prolific writer on Indian knowledge systems, further demonstrating her breadth of research and teaching interests. It is now my pleasure to introduce the chair of today's session, Dr. Shirish K. Pathak. Dr. Shirish K. Pathak is a political analyst, educator, and public intellectual whose work straddles domains of international relations, public policy, foreign policy, South Asian studies, border security, political theory, and cultural discourse. Dr. Pathak is an expert in the field of border security and border management and has published widely on the political, strategic, and sociological dimensions of borders in South Asia. His research contributes significantly to the emerging discipline of border studies with a keen focus on the Indo-Pacific and India's evolving geopolitical calculus. As the founder and host of Vatras, a Hindi language podcast, he curates dialogues with poets, diplomats, scholars, and spiritual thinkers, expanding intellectual discourse beyond English and into the everyday language of people. We are privileged to have him chair this session, and we look forward to his insights. I would now like to hand over the session to our esteemed chair, Dr. Shirish K. Pathak.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Right now we are in this session, and this session is all about India-Canada relations in shifting global orders. We are having time constraint in such a way that between this session and valedictory session there's a lunch also. So we have to maintain the time constraint also. And if you ask me, India-Canada relations, the topic is very, very, very much important nowadays. In terms of 24/7 news media channels, this topic is very, very much burning topic actually. Unfortunately, I'm sitting in between the most learned panel, and sometimes coordinating with the learned people is very difficult, but I'm very fortunate today. What we are going to do, that I will invite each panelist for first round, that will for 3 minutes, to state their respective position on the topic. Then in the second round, I will invite them again for the 5 minutes so that we can have some discussion on that, and followed by some question and answer. But before that, let me introduce the topic. India-Canada relations and shifting global orders. Our panelists will talk about India-Canada relations at length. Let me talk on shifting global orders. Believe me, since I'm doing my graduation, since I have done my graduation, almost every year, every conference, I'm listening this shifting global orders. US is very much there. and all the people are saying global order is shifting. If you follow theories of higher realism, if you follow liberalism, this is very interesting that this vocabulary shifting global order or global order. What do you mean by global order? Global order means how the nations of the world they are situated in terms of power relations. So this particular term global order is very much part of realist vocabulary. And very interestingly, in this realist global order, in this realist vocabulary, US is coming at the apex. And the same US is saying that this is liberal world order, and each and every country is same in terms of there's a power equity and there's a liberal, every country is having that liberal values, and there's an equal level playing field. So the question arises here whether actually something is shifting or not. Almost every conference, every seminar, we will give some, people will be giving some reasons, but for this conference, for this time in 2025, I think there are 3-4 reasons where every will become agree that yes, orders is actually shifting nowadays. And first one is what is happening last 4 or 5 years. The main focus, the limelight is coming to Asia actually. Second thing is China. China belongs to Asia, and last 4 or 5 years, China has shifted its gear also. China is there, always there, but now China is very much vocal also. Now China is showing its capacity. We have seen that in last SU meeting also, that now China is not shy to show its power. China from Asia. Then we are aware about Ukraine-Russia war. Russia again from Asia, dominantly Asia, and this is the pain of Russia that most of the countries, they are not counting them in Europe, more they are counting in Asia actually. So now things are shifting because China is very much visibly present there. Russia is in a war with Ukraine, and Russia again from Asia. And see the relationship between relationship of US to Asian powers, that is again shifting. So the whole limelight is coming to Asia actually. So yes, now nobody can say that shifting power is not happening. Actually, global power is shifting, and this is coming towards global south. Now, in this shifting backdrop, in this shifting background, how India-Canada relationship is faring? Again, the last September to this September, from that September to this September, so many things happened between India and Canada. It's actually a 360-degree change actually. So in shifting paradigm, shifting global power context, our panelists, our learned revered panelists, they will speak on India-Canada relations, and that is the most interesting relationship if you compare with any kind of bilateral relationship in this right now in this world. So first, I will request the Professor Rekha Saxena ma'am for her take on India-Canada relation for 3 minutes, and then again we will have the next conversation. So from the first round of conversation, I will request Professor Saxena. Okay, ma'am.
Very good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank AIIS Amity University, Professor Nag Lakshmi and Raman, and her entire team and colleagues and students. And I can see my old friend Preeti here, another panelist, Professor Mandal, Sneha, Professor Pathak. So it's really an honor for me to be part of this important deliberation, 3-day deliberation. So thank you so much for this kind invitation. And the topic for today's discussion is very important. Shifting global order and how India-Canada relations have changed over the years in the shifting global order. So, as I mentioned, earlier, I was talking to the panelists that I'm not an expert on IR. I work on Indian politics and comparative politics. But I do work on comparative politics. My PhD was on India and Canada. I looked at from federalism perspective. So before we talk about, because most of the panelists here are experts in IR, so they will focus more on the shifting, global order, and especially India, Canada. So, but I would like to give you a brief background why India and Canada they are important and what is their connection, why we are comparing India and Canada. Though they are on different side of the globe, opposite side of the globe, at different levels of economic development, and but they are similar in a lot of ways. They are both multicultural societies, both are diverse societies, and both were former British colonies. So they have their Commonwealth connection. So both countries started as centralized federations, and they have similar institutions, similar growth of institutions, and both started as very centralized federations. But over the years, especially since 1960s and 1970s, Canada has become more federal despite its constitution, and therefore Casey, where the known comparativist described Canada and India as examples of quasi-federalism. But he made a fine distinction, arguing that in case of Canada, the constitution is, quasi-federal, but in actual practice, Canada had become more federal because some of the overriding powers which were given to the federal government, like reservation of a provincial bill, disallowance of a bill, they are in disuse. But in case of India, he argues that both in practice as well as if you see the constitution, the constitution has given more powers to the federal government. So both India also started as a centralized federation, but since 1980s and 90s, India is also moving towards greater federalization of its polity. Now, in both the countries, Canada and India, you will find that party system transformation and judicial interpretations they have played a very important role in greater federalization. Canada started with 2+ party system, liberals and conservatives, and then 2+ party system where new party NDP came into the picture, and then some regional parties in different provinces of Canada like Green Party and smaller parties. But it is not that fractured like Indian party system. But in India, party system transformation has been a very important factor from one party dominance to multi-party configuration that has led towards greater federalization of Indian polity. Then judiciary has played a very important role in both the countries. In Canada, until the Supreme Court was constituted in 1949, it used to be governed by Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, and then but it was more reviewing within the parliamentary framework. But after the setting up of the Supreme Court in Canada 1949, it is the Canadian Constitution, and after the inclusion of the Charter of Rights and Freedom in the Canadian Constitution, they have been able to protect the interests of the provinces, and you can see the famous Quebec secession case, and I don't want to go into the details. And in case of India also, our judiciary is known as the most powerful judiciary with its power of judicial review and judicial activism. And I think privatization and globalization has also played a very important role in both the countries in, at the one hand, integration of national economy with global economy, and within the country, decentralization of power to the grassroots level, which got constitutional footing in India by 73rd and 74th Amendment. And then if you see, since both are parliamentary federal systems, intergovernmental relations are conducted through the executive branch of the government. So First Ministers Conference, that's the apex intergovernmental forum in Canada, and we have Interstate Council, and now we have Niti Aayog, which has been transformed. Planning Commission has been abolished, and now we have constituted Niti Aayog and Governing Council of the Niti Aayog, and then GST Council. They are very important, intergovernmental forums for conduct of intergovernmental relations between the center and the state at the horizontal level. And then vertical level, at the vertical level, and at the horizontal level, the relations are more, the mechanisms are more sporadic. They are very rare. If you see the example, mayors conferences, sarpanches conferences, same is in Canada. So in intergovernmental, the nitty gritty of intergovernmental relations in India and Canada is one level below, at the level of ministers, at the level of conference of ministers, first ministers conferences, ad hoc conferences. So in this changes, so this is the background I thought I'll give you in this, why we are comparing India and Canada, why they are important. So because there has to be some rationale why you are selecting these two case studies. So next, I'll come to it later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So as a one important determinant of foreign policy, we know that political system is one important determinant. Until unless we are not knowing about political system of the country, we cannot predict the virtue of predictability, knowing IR, is that you should know about the political system of the country, which country you are talking about. So thank you so much for that insight, ma'am. Now let me call Professor Kamran M.K. Mondal, sir. It's for the 3 minutes, sir, so that we can have your opinion on India-Canada relations. Sir.
What to speak in 3 minutes, that is my challenge. Good afternoon, my students. Good afternoon. Still you are so, not feeling energetic. You are listening for last 3 days. What we learned in last 3 days? In international relations, there are no permanent friends or enemies. That we learned in last 3 days. So international relations are relations. That I will begin. So let me acknowledge first the AIIS. I am not telling the full form. Time is short. And your whole team, and my sincere gratitude to Dr. Subham and Director Ma'am, Naglasmi Ma'am. My due regard to chair my co-panelists. So when we are talking about the relations and the global order, when it is relational, in one side we are having, if you take the example of the Khalistan issue in Indo-Canada relations, we are talking about the Khalistan issue, that is the only issue between India and Canada to have strained relations. On the other side, if you see the graph, bilateral trade is upward. It simply reflects what we learned in last 3 days. There are no permanent friends or enemies. Forget it. This is our nature. We should forget even. And let's start. We forgot when the Ukraine-Russia war started. I am asking you, when? This is my chance to ask. February 2022. We forgot it. We forgot the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. It started in October 2023. You will see that we forgot the ethnic cleansing in Gaza, and we forgot the role of international organizations. Again, it raised the questions of relevance of international organizations, including International Criminal Court. If you see the list of conflict or war in the world, in Sudan, Congo, and all the Sahel regions, the list will go on. So this is the question. We are in order. We are talking about the global order. India-Canada relations in the shifting global order. The world is in order. This is the basic question comes in our mind. Coming to my topic, I would like to focus on Indo-Canada relations with focusing on the Indo-Pacific area. We all are aware that by this time we became aware that Indo-Pacific region, this is important not only for these countries, but for those major countries. You take the example of US, UK, Germany, France, Quad countries. All the countries, they have specific strategy towards Indo-Pacific. Many argue that Canada became late with Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy that came in November 2022. It is late for Canada. So many argue that Canada should have come earlier, realizing the importance of Indo-Pacific area. And where India is situated in it. If you see the statement of the paper of Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy papers, you will find that India is the pillar of Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy. It simply implies that India has importance to the Canadians in the Indo-Pacific region. Naturally, we have to talk what are those areas where India and Canada, they can work together. What are the areas, the shared values we talk about that India and Canada, they are having common in internationally, in multilateral institutions, and also in bilateral relations. So my focus would be on when we are talking about Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy, where India is situated, it will generally reflect the India-Canada bilateral relations, their issues, and the areas where we can move forward from here. So I think I should stop here. In the next session, I will explain. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So now most of the people, they are looking India-Canada relations with the key terms like there's a problem with sovereignty, security, and suspicion. In this context, sir has pointed out that Indo-Pacific strategy of Canada is very much dependent on India actually. So for Canada, India is very, very much important player in this world politics. Let's go ahead with the discussion. Let me invite Dr. Mansi Sinha. Dr. Mansi Sinha for her opinion. Yes, please, Dr. Mansi Sinha.
Hello, am I audible? Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. A slight correction, my name is not Mansi Sinha, it's Kumari Mansi, right? So
okay, very sorry, Dr. Kumari Mansi. This is the first round. Just for 3 minutes, we are taking your opinion. Please go
all right,
ahead.
so do I need to share my slides or I can just, I do have a slide prepared, so I can share my slide if you want.
Okay, please.
All right, so just give me a second. Yeah. Right, is it visible, my slide?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, let me begin by thanking the organizers for inviting me for this excellent panel. I wouldn't have missed it, although I do miss being there in person. Since I have studied Canada for a very long time, so it is really great to see a panel specific on Canada. Now, thank you, organizers. Now, this is the topic of my talk today. I'm going to talk about the big shift which has happened in India-Canada relations, and I'll be basically concentrating on Stephen Harper and Trudeau, because right now it's too soon to say how things are going to unfold under Mark Carney. Although there has been good signs that the relations are in the upward trajectory. So, basically, I'll be touching upon the three things: India-Canada relations in retrospect. What are the shift which has happened under the two leadership, and then I will try to frame it in the context of Indo-Pacific, whether it provides a converging point between both the countries. Now, if you look at India-Canada relations, this is one of the relations which Canada, had. I mean, it has been very troubled. Now, despite the fact that these two countries they do share a lot of, diaspora. They are multicultural countries. They are democratic countries. So they have all the ingredients of being natural partners and natural allies. However, they have not been able to translate this and become natural partners, like something which India has done with France. So what are the reasons why they have, despite so much of similarity and so much of connection, why these two have not been able to become a natural partner is one question which comes. Now, if you look at the trajectory of the relations from 1947 to 2025, I would say, this can be divided into three periods. Basically, a period of a golden period, which was basically 1940s and early 1950s. Then the benign indifference between the two countries, and then again re-engagement following 2000. 1974 was the lowest point following the nuclear explosion, or the laughing Buddha thing by India, where Canada felt actually betrayed. And then there have been bilateral irritants in the relationship, which of course we all know is the Khalistan factor. Oh, sorry. That. Yeah, sorry. So the relations between the countries have historically oscillated between the period of warmth and estrangement, with diaspora politics and trust deficit acting as the persistent structural constraint. Now these things has happened, and the biggest shift between India-Canada relation took place under Stephen Harper. Now, he's the one, when he came to power in 2016, he came with this very strategic, pragmatic view. And under that can be, I mean, there are various reasons for that. One is that, he was conservative rightist government, and he did believe in the economic diplomacy a lot, rather than something which Canada has been like championing, like the human security agenda of the Lloyd Exworthy and something like that. So it has been very pragmatic, and he looked at India in a very big way. So these were some of the cooperation which were signed and which have been actually landmarks. So both the countries signed civil nuclear cooperation agreement. This is important point because India and Canada has always had a diverging view when it comes to nuclear proliferation. In fact, 1974 and 1998, when India did test nuclear declare itself as a nuclear power, Canada was one of the Western countries which has the harshest criticism. Canada did try to block India's loans and grant, and I mean it has, I mean, even the United States was not as harsh as Canada being on India on the nuclear cooperation. So under Stephen Harper, when this cooperation agreement was signed, that was a landmark agreement. And then you had a growing trade and energy. In fact, the trade between both countries increased. And then Stephen Harper also did believe a lot in the vote bank politics. So one of the reasons was also that he wanted to do the ethnic vote. So he reached out to the Indian community because, Canada has a big Indian diaspora. Right. And he did see a strategic convergence with India. So back in 2011, it was the year of India in Canada. Harper visited India. He was the one to actually say sorry for the Kanishka bombing. Prime Minister Modi did also visit. Right. So things were in a very upward trajectory. Things were going really well until 2015, when you have the Liberal government.
Dr. Mansi, I have to stop you right
came
here.
To power under the Stephen.
I will invite you again for the next round of this discussion. First round was for 3 minutes. Then you should not close the PPT. We will carry forward from here.
Okay. So I did not know that this is going on question answer basis. I just thought that we have to make the president.
It's a panel discussion. So in the first round of 3 minutes, I have invited for the opinion. Then again, I will invite for the compliment.
Okay. So, Chair, just one request. Can you just ask the questions to me right now? Because, I am already in a panel which is going on.
No, we cannot invite
right have now. To be there.
We cannot invite the question.
So if you could just...
They have to establish the argument first.
All right. Sorry, I was not aware of the...
Only at the end we can invite the question answer.
All right, so I can.
I request you just wait for the next round of discussion. Then we can invite question answer.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Kumar Mansi. Now, I will invite Dr. Sneha Bhagat for her set of opinion. Dr. Sneha Bhagat.
Namaste and good afternoon to everyone. I am very thankful to the organizer, Nagalakshmi ma'am, and the coordinators, Dr. Shubham, as well as I think, Dr. Shubham happens to be a part of our center, and today, it's an honor to be a part of this distinguished panel on India-Canada, discussing India-Canada relations in this changing global order. So, I'll just emphasize for 2-3 minutes that what I intend to speak, and no doubt that India-Canada relations has seen a significant shifts, and amid this changing world order, and often marked by the geopolitical, realignments, economic uncertainties, and rise of multipolarity. India-Canada relations has, no doubt it's grounded in the shared democratic values, in sense, Commonwealth ties, as well as people-to-people connections. So here, since this India-Canada relations has seen so much of ups and downs of in their relationship. Here, I wish to bring forth a deeper understanding of Canada to this discussion, because Canada, often perceived through a narrow lens of middle power for its role in liberal internationalism. And here, I want to argue that it must be understood through its historical legacies, its contemporary capabilities, and its convergence with India. So, like for decades, the discourse around the Canadian foreign policy has been anchored to its normative identity, which is peacekeeping, multilateralism, human rights, and humanitarian aid. And many of the scholars, like from John Holmes to Kim Nossel, have highlighted how Canada's self-image has been shaped by its reputation as a good international citizen. And this is an identity which, moreover, solidified by Lester Pearson's role during the Suez crisis and Canada's significant contributions to UN peacekeeping. Uh, but while accurate, this framing is profoundly limited, and it does capture Canada's soft power strengths, but sadly obscures its hard power assets like energy, technology, geography, and economic weight. So, what I feel is Canada must be studied through scholars by international relations, not only as a middle power, but as a state embedded in dynamics of high politics. And this calibration is also essential for Indian policymakers to enable them to understand Canada better and engage more profoundly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sneha. Now, with the first round of discussion, we have established that how Canada actually matters for India and for rest of the world. And from that 3S, that suspicion, security, and sovereignty, right now we have to talk on another 3E, that is economy and education and energy, that is a clean energy. There is a possibility of relationship and possibility of cooperation between the two nations. Canada is a middle power, Canada is a soft power, Canada is very much important, and we must not just check Canada with the prism of US always, but there's so many things where we can complement each other. And one of the PPT, as shown by Dr. Mansi, that the first slide, that the graph itself was showing how we are faring between between India and Canada. That relationship is struggling. But as I have said earlier, that from that September to this September, so many things happened actually. So now the final round of arguments, I again request to Professor Rekha Saxena ma'am. Please come on the, okay, please go ahead for your argument, that final set of arguments, ma'am.
Okay. Hello. Yeah. Thank you so much. So in the previous round, I gave you a background, why it is important to study India-Canada relations, why why should we compare the two countries? What is the background? What is the areas of convergence? So now, going ahead, I think very interesting points have been made by my co-panelist, and I would say when we talk about India-Canada relations, we see that these two countries they link North America, okay, with South Asia. I was in Canada when I was doing my PhD. 1 year I was there at Queen's University, and there was a lot of alienation by Western provinces, in the sense they thought that there was more trade between North and South than East and West, because it is a very diverse, big country, large country. So there was meaning thereby that more South than North and South between Canada and America in the South, than between Eastern and Western provinces of Canada. So there was a lot of alienation among them. So Canada and India relations are important because they link both North America with South Asia, and also with developed world with global South, and also economically, potentially they are with the strategic alignment, you can say. And then another point of convergence is like diaspora, which was also mentioned by one of the co-panelists, which is important, that over 1.6 million people of Indian origin are there in Canada, and 4%, that means approximately 4% of the Canadian population. It must be last time when I was there, I have been there as Shastri Doctoral Fellow, Shastri Faculty Research Fellow, Indo Shastri Faculty Enrichment Fellow, and I've been, it's like my second home. Canada was the first country I visited abroad, and I've been going there regularly as visiting faculty in different universities, Queen's University, McGill, Toronto and other places. तो बहुत अच्छा डायस्पोरा का जो है बहुत अच्छा मेरा एक्सपीरियंस रहा. तो इंडियन डायस्पोरा, दैट इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर, and one of the largest, you can say, and most influential diaspora communities in Canada. And also Sikh, they have the largest Sikh population outside India is in Canada, in Vancouver, Toronto. I got the opportunity to visit Vancouver also, in British Columbia, and वहां पे like इंडिया की तरह, you will say there are some areas where वहां पे पंजाबी songs चल रहे थे, जलेबी समोसे तले जा रहे थे, और there were 6 newspapers which were published in Punjabi. There were in many universities Punjabi was being taught there. तो आप डायस्पोरा का जो सिग्निफिकेंस वहां पे देखेंगे, इंडिया के बाहर जो है कनाडा में इतना लार्जेस्ट, मुझे लगता है उसका इन्फ्लुएंस. और अभी जो लास्ट गवर्नमेंट ट्रूडो की थी, उनमें कितने मिनिस्टर्स एंड मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट दे वर फ्रॉम इंडियन ओरिजिन. So diaspora is a very important factor, and then both countries are strategically important because Canada is an important ally of United States of America and member of several groupings like G7, and India same way in South Asia is an emerging power, voice of the global South, and so both are also actively involved in several regional groupings like G20 and United Nations and WTO and others, and both India and Canada, they are very much interested in a free or open, you can say, Indo-Pacific strategy, and Professor Mandal talked about it, that Canada see India as an important pillar in its Indo-Pacific strategy. And then another important factor in this Indo-Canada relations is, to balance is the Chinese assertiveness, the growing role of China, as Professor Pathak also mentioned, that how China has become more vocal. In SCO meeting, it was witnessed. So India and China are seen as two Asian giants. And in the speeches of our Prime Minister, he often says that India. The other day, I was speaking at the Narendra Modi, Adhyan Kend event to celebrate 75 years of Prime Minister. So I talked about it, how the Viksit Bharat 2047 vision, also. Keeps in mind to bring India not as third but second largest economy in the world. So and then India's remain Canada's 10th largest trading partner, which was also pointed by this one of the presenter, Mansi Sinha, in her presentation. And and also Canadian pension funds, they are also invested in a large number in Indian infrastructural development programs. But in over last few years, we have seen that our relations have strained, due to this pro-Khalistan groups, which are very much influencing the Canadian politics, and the killing of this Niger in 2023, and the remarks made by the former Prime Minister Trudeau, alleging in Indian government's involvement. So that our relation escalated, and there was diplomatic tension, and cooperation, our trade, security cooperation slowed down for some time. But with the change of regime in Canada, there's new hope, and Canadian government also, Prime Minister said that India is an important strategic partner. So India also prioritized this partnership with US. So Indo-Pacific breaks, or also it has good relations, but whereas Canada has more with the Western alliances. So in this period 24-25, we saw strained relations between India and Canada, but now there's need to stabilize, our ties due to economic and diaspora, factors, and what is needed is, de-escalation of this public rhetoric, and to strengthen international dialogue, expand our cooperation in, different areas like important fields like climate change, environment, address international concerns like terrorism. So I think in this Sneha also pointed out that in this shifting global order, it is very important to see Canada in different perspective, and she also talked about this bilateral trade and other important, made many important theoretical points. So I think in this shifting global order, which Professor Pathak talked about, that it can be seen as power relations from realist theory perspective, and where USA is at the apex, and with the imposition of tariffs by President Trump, and then India and Russia, Putin, and Prime Minister Modi and the Chinese premier, they're meeting together, and the next day we saw that President Trump announced that India is important. Earlier he said on Twitter that India is, they wish them good luck, all three giants they were meeting. But after a few days, there was another, in his Twitter handle, there was this remark by the President Trump that India is an important partner and we are friends. So, and then so many developments are taking place: Russia, Ukraine war, West Asia, so many developments. So, in this changing world order, multipolar world, I think it is important to see India-Canada relations. How we need to strengthen because of our commonalities and diaspora and trade and economic factors. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Before this discussion, we were talking to each other that in this India-Canada relation panel discussion, everybody is coming from India. Everybody is Indian actually. So how we will be so sensible about talking about India and Canada relations? But I think our panelists are very much having that affinity to Canada or Canadian affairs. So that unbiasedness is very much evident here. So thank you so much, ma'am. Let me request Professor Kamran M.K. Mondal, sir, for his final set of argument. Last time also he has pointed out that how India matters for Canada for its Indo-Pacific strategy. So, sir, for the final round, sir.
Again, 5 minutes, 5 points, including introduction and conclusion. Okay. So, my students, just I'll talk about 5 points only. Okay. So, let me begin with importance of Indo-Pacific area. It is Canada's second largest trading region after the US. This is the importance. 40% of trade in oil passes through this area only. 2/5 of the world population, they live here, around 4 billion. 4 billion people, they live here. And China's assertiveness, that also make strategic crucial area, and these are the importance of this region. Let me come to the point directly now. Why Canada failed to come towards this area? Number one, diversification from the US. diversification from the US. As we know about the Canada, UK is mother country and US is bordering countries. Most of the trade you will find around 89% of the trade they have with US. And you see the disruptions triggered by Trump too. Now Canada has to think. This is the Canada's interest to diversify its trade relations towards other areas. Which area to choose? You are thinking to diversify, but which area you have to choose? Middle East, Africa. If you see the graph, Canada's investment in the Middle East and Africa is declining. Why? Because of political instability and other factors also there. So Indo-Pacific area, this is the obvious reason. Okay. Now coming to another point. China's assertiveness. How much Canada is concerned about that? We are concerned about China's assertiveness more than Canada. Why? You see the examples. Just summarizing the things. China's presence you will find when we are talking about the Indo-Pacific region. Take the example of Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. They have leased, Sri Lanka have leased for 99 years to China in 2017. Take the example of Kipu port in Myanmar, 2013, Gadar port in Pakistan, Riem naval base in Cambodia, Liam Chang port in Thailand, Dar es Salaam port in Tanzania, logistics facility in Djibouti. These are major ports I am talking about. And how directly concerned Canada with the China is imprisonment of Canadian citizens Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, which is seen as a reprisal by China for the arrest of Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou in Canada. These are the personal rivalry between China and Canada. You see, when we are talking about the China's assertiveness in this region, how much China and Canada they are concerned about it? If you see their trade relations, their trade volume is more than double than India-Canada trade volume. You cannot ignore China. Canada is not member of Quad. Canada is not member of AUKUS. Canada is concerned, but Canada is thinking in terms of their own interest. We have to remember this point. Coming to the next point, you remember the point. Next point, India, Canada. I am not focusing on history much. Let me summarize the things. I will cite one example. How Canada followed US policy in terms of making of their own foreign policy. I'll give you one example. I was mentioning that Canada either followed UK or USA. In my whole PhD work, I found what Canada followed in their foreign policies. I have seen that Canada either followed UK or USA. If there is controversy between UK and US in some point, then Canada faces some challenges. Canada faced the challenge in 1956 in Suez Canal crisis, when UK and US they had differences. Canada came with some new idea, that is UNPKF, peacekeeping forces. Then resolve the issue. Coming to this example, Canada supported with their nuclear facilities to newly independent India in the 1950s. We know the example of Cyrus reactor. And we developed civil nuclear technology. After that, we faced the challenge of 1962 war, 1965 war, 1970 war, 71 war, and in 1964 we have seen that China became nuclear power. So all these challenges, because of all these challenges, India experimented that 1974 and 1998 Cochrane test. So this thing, Canada felt you have reached our agreements. Canada did not normalize with India unless, this is the point, unless US recognized India and normalized relations in terms of India-US civil nuclear agreement that happened in 2008. After this agreement, it became easier for Canada to come up with India-Canada civil nuclear agreement in 2013. You see, this is the turning point. Canada followed US in terms of their foreign policy. This example I wanted to cite. And from then, India-Canada, we have very good relations in terms of our India-Canada civil nuclear agreements. Just I remembered another point, I just have escaped. But our chair reminded that we have education and research collaboration. Just I'll cite one example here. Our collaboration, you see, it is multi-dimensional. Just we are not stuck in only that strained relations between India and Canada on some Palestine issue. We are moving forward and our relations by multi-dimensional. Just in terms of education and research collaboration, Canada received a record of 2.26 lakh Indian students in 2022. Can you imagine that? You see, we have that MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, between India and Canada. In approximately 300 institutions are involved. Under the GAN project, around 98 Canadian faculty members they visited India for short-term programs. And we know the Sasti Indo-Canada Institute, SICI, a binational institute that is also vital in fostering both countries' educational, research and cultural partnership. So we have very good relations in terms of education and research collaboration. Coming to next point and I'll conclude. Now, Indian diaspora, we cannot forget. You see, I'm not talking much. Let me conclude. Indian diaspora, this is the determining factor of India-Canada relations. It is the determining factor of making Canada's foreign policy. This is the vital point. Then, I'll not talk much. Just I was thinking what to say. Let me conclude. 2 points, conclude now. To summarize the whole thing, remember, Canada caught between unpredictable US, number one, caught between unpredictable US and untrustworthy China. Engagement with India offers a stabilizing alternative. First point. Next, concluding part, with each new twist in Washington, the case in both India and Canada relations grow stronger. Next vital point, India need stable source. Canada is vital source of energy. India needs stable source. On the other side, Canada needs a reliable market, that is India, that make a strong partnership between the two countries. Last sentence. Both countries, they can gain economically, strategically, and culturally. From their deeper engagement, they must focus on these areas, but is important. But we have to acknowledge and manage our differences. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I I feel that when you talk about bilateral relationship, there's nothing like last, because relations are very much complex and they are very much valuable also. I guess Dr. Kumari Mansi is not here, so let me invite Dr. Sneha Bhagat for her final round of arguments. Dr. Sneha.
Thank you, Chair. So now we will try to understand what I spoke in that pre-thematic uh, themes where I said that how to see Canada in the international politics, how Canada is important in the discipline of IR, and how like Canada-India relation has unfolded in the contemporary era. So when I say, I mean, maybe let me begin by expanding Canada's position and role in the international politics. So the conventional story situates Canada at the margins of power politics, but the history tells us otherwise. Canada was not simply a peacekeeper; it was central to Manhattan Project, providing uranium and heavy water essential to the development of nuclear technology. Canada also emerged as a leader in aerospace and space innovations. I mean, the Arrow in 1950s, the Canadrum in 1980s, and the Canadian Space Agencies continued contributing to this global exploration. These were not sideline of low politics, but a direct contribution to the core security and technological architectures of, architecture of the 20th century. So, in the contemporary era, Canada remains a G7 economy with a nominal GDP of over 2.2 trillion US dollars, deeply embedded in the global trade networks, and more importantly, it is a resource superpower, the sixth largest energy producer in the world, with the third largest proven oil reserves, vast natural gas, uranium, and inviolable supply of renewable hydropower. In addition, Canada is among very few states possessing all 12 of NATO's designated critical minerals, including lithium, cobalt, and rare earths. These are not just economic commodities, but strategic assets in the age of technological rivalry between US and China. Many of the thinkers they've said that this control over resources and production structure is a indecisive form of structural power. Canada also occupies a unique strategic location. Its Arctic sovereignty, once considered peripheral, has become central with the opening of new sea routes and resource opportunities. The Arctic is rapidly emerging as a zone of contestation among great powers. Canada's ability to exert authority here is directly relevant to this global security. Now, why Canada in the discipline of international relations? So, we need to understand why international relations has like largely failed to recognize these dimensions. Partly because of the middle power framework, while politically useful, it became an intellectual straitjacket. Scholars like Robert Cox they have critiqued the definitional ambiguity of the middle power concept, noting it was born from the political convenience rather than this analytical precision. So, this IR scholarship has often neglected Canada's hard power contribution and structural position in global politics. A more balanced appraisal requires us to integrate insights from realism to critical international political economy to examine Canada's leverage through its resources, its asymmetrical but resilient relationship with the US, and its technological leadership in domains such as artificial intelligence, quantum computing, aerospace, and clean technologies. Canada's relationship with the United States is case in point. While Canada is dependent on US markets, nearly 75% of its export goes to South. This relationship is better understood as one of the asymmetrical interdependence. Canada's position of indispensable resources and defense cooperation through NORAD gives it a quite but profound leverage over the Washington. Here, as you know, Cohen and I reminds us of interdependence is not mere vulnerability, but it can be a form of power. Now, if we see India Canada through the lens of, or we can see how it has emerged as a from the narrow perceptions to the strategic convergence. So, unfortunately, the India Canada relationship has often viewed through a very narrow lens, defined primarily by political frictions, especially surrounding the Khalistan issue. This singular focus has obscured the larger strategic landscape, creating a tendency to reduce the relationship to one of the irritants rather than possibilities.
Okay.
And 1 minute only. Yet, yes, we often broaden our analytical lenses. A very different picture emerges beyond these immediate political tensions. There is a deep complementarities between the two states that deserve recognition. First, India is rapidly growing economy, energy-hungry economy, seeking secure and diversified supply chains. Canada, in contrast, is a resource-abundant country and with immense reserves of oil, natural gas, uranium, and critical minerals vital for the global green transition. This synergy is not only economic but strategic. It could underpin stable energy and technology supplies in the era when interdependence itself is being weaponized. Second, in the domain of technology, Canada's pioneering expertise in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and clean technologies aligns closely with India's global leadership in IT and services and digital governance. So, if I want to conclude that how Canada, how Canada and India relations has unfolded. So, Canada has far too long been understood through this narrow prism of middle power, liberal internationalism. That identity has value, but it is insufficient. A fuller picture reveals a state with substantive asset in energy, minerals, technology, and geography. That assets that place in the very heart of contemporary high politics. For students of international relations, Canada is thus not a marginal case but a vital one. Its history of nuclear, aerospace, and technological contribution.
Sneha, I request you, please.
Yeah. So, at last, I would say for India, as a traditional middle power and rising one, India finds in Canada not a competitor, but a complement, a partner in shaping multipolar world order that values both normative commitments and material strength. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. We are having just 2 minutes as per the schedule actually, and just I will take few seconds to summarize the whole panel, and then I will write 1 or 2 questions to conclude it in a particular stipulated time. So I'm very grateful to Professor Rekha Saxena ma'am, as she has given the background of Canadian political system, and she has highlighted the diaspora part that is very, very much crucial between India and Canada. Professor Kamran M.K. Mondal sir, I'm very grateful to you as you have pointed out some kind of reality check what is happening between India and Canada, and sometimes we tend to forget those things. So that is very much valuable to make to have a point on that, so that we can have better understanding about this bilateral relationship. Dr. K. Mansi, though we have just had her 1 round of her opinion, but she has highlighted how India-Canada relationship has gone to that lower, from that apex to lower, because earlier we were having a very good relationship with Canada. Then till Trudeau, there's a particular steep relationship between India and Canada. And if she would be there, then I will be definitely asking her so how we are recovering from that abyss actually. So I'm again grateful to Dr. Kumari Mansi. Dr. Sneha Bhagat, I'm very grateful to you also, because you have broken that cliche that Canada is a soft power and Canada is very much important to India. Fine, but Canada is must be considered as a hard power also, and their role is very much important. In conclusion, if I must say that for India and Canada, both are very much important to both countries. till the time we are respecting each other's sensibilities, we should make most of it. So Canada cannot ignore India, and India must not. So this is the conclusion as per I am understanding. Now I invite question, one or two question very quickly so that we can proceed with the lunch. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Devjit Dev, Master SEM 1, Amity Institute of International Relations. My question is to both Dr. Mondol and Dr. Saxena. Canada's allegations regarding the potential links, quote unquote, of Indian agents to the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar represent a profound breach of trust. From a diplomatic and strategic perspective, what would a credible and mutually acceptable process of de-escalation and investigation look like? Is the current diplomatic silence a necessary cooling off or a dangerous drift? As Dr. Mondol, you already said about the engagements with India offers a stabilizing alternative. So according to that, can you give us some insights, please? And Dr. Saxena also. Thank you.
It's okay.
Okay. Any other questions so that we can answer? Please. And please be very brief because we are not having that much time.
Good afternoon, sir. My name
Yeah.
is Shashu Shankar and I am the student of MA International Relations first semester. My question is for Ma'am Sneha and Ma'am Rekha. Ma'am, there is an ongoing US case indictment on the assassination plot of Gurwant Singh Pannu by Nikhil Gupta and former RAW agent Vikas Yadav. Why US is trying to protect Gurwant Singh Pannu? And my second question is, there is a new agreement between India and Canada on intelligence sharing in this June. But after the Kanishka bombing of 1985, Canada has not cooperated with India on the investigation and other things. So why India is cooperating with Canada? And after the 26, and after handing over the list of 26 Khalistani convicted list of terrorists for extradition.
Thank you. One last question we can take, then we can. Then I have to ask convener if convener will permit. So
Good afternoon, everyone. My question is open to all panelists. My name is Ekta Sharma, and my question to you is: Khalistan groups in Canada has openly disrespected our Indian flag, yet the Canadian government hides behind so-called freedom of expression. In 2023, they even went as far as to accuse India in the Niger without any solid proof. On top of that, Canada repeatedly questions India's human rights record at global forums. After so much blatant insult and interference, can we really talk about good relations? Doesn't sound like compromising on patriotism when a national pride is at stake?
thank you, dear sir.
Okay, Khalistan issue is very much important in Indo-Canada relations that I was talking about. We have this basic idea that what is this Khalistani movement? The Khalistani area that in Punjab, they are demanding for separate state, separate country for the Sikhs. Okay. So most of the Indian immigrants to Canada, who are those? Sikhs. You'll find that Sikh, they are the first immigrants to Canada under the regiment of that British rule. So Sikhs, they have hold there in Canada. So this movement, separatist movement going on in Canada, and India always blames or accuses Canada for harboring these separatists in Canada. This is common blame for India. And Canada accuses India in that Hardeep Singh Nijjar murder case, which India denies. They have given some proof and something like that, and India is saying that you are not giving some credible source. Anyway, we are moving forward from when? We are moving forward after the Mark Carney became the Prime Minister of Canada. Isn't it? In the G7 sideline, the bilateral talks between Indian Prime Minister and Canadian Prime Minister, our relations became normalized. We restored the High Commissioners and diplomatic officials. So this is the main point. And next, after these bilateral talks, conversations, we find that our External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar talked his counterpart, Foreign Minister Anita Anand. Since then also, our relations are normalizing. So these are the point, I think.
What I understood from one of the student who asked that why Panun is being protected, right? So that's what I could make out. So we need to understand that Canada follows a rule of law, and their understanding of and interpretation, they generally keep themselves safe with those terminologies. So they think he Panun being somewhere they protect the right of citizens, and then they don't want somewhere those the citizenship over the rule of law. It's something which comes up, and then Canada has always protected those. We say them as Khalistani, but it's their Canadian citizens. So that distinction is being we need to understand. Then there was a question on the Canada being a member of Five Eye and then sharing the intelligence. See, when we talk of a bilateral relation or when we talk of a diplomatic relation, we need to understand that it always goes with an ups and downs. Somewhere the leadership plays a role. We can say Justin Trudeau era had failed to address what we say. Say for example how Canada and India portrays. We are very sovereign, and we understand we need to see that how the nation's interest gets protected. So somewhere these intelligence sharing, they claim that they had the evidence, but till date it's that it hasn't come up. The 2 days back the diplomatic standoff which took place, but now the ambassadors are already there. So there's an improvement with the new Prime Minister. So we need not to look at relations with the leadership role. We need to understand that how dynamics with the leaders changes. Mark Carney is more pragmatic. He's economist. He understands trade. He understands so we need to understand in those terms. Need not to be very segregated in terms like ऐसा खालिस्तान का हो गया तो हम क्यों relation रखें? It doesn't happen in this contemporary global order. We need to be, and India is rising. We need to understand.
Fair enough. Ma'am.
Just to add to what Sneha and Professor Mandal said, I think as Sneha pointed out that in case of Canada they have rule of law, and every country they have their extradition laws also rules. So and national interest in IR is most important. So they have to follow that procedure and keep the national interest in mind. But as Professor Mandal mentioned earlier, that there are no permanent friends and enemies in politics. And with this changing, global politics and changing environment, multipolar world, growing interdependence amongst nations, we have to maintain relations with all the countries. And as I mentioned, China and India, we had Doklam, so many issues, but now we had meeting between Putin and Chinese Premier and Indian Prime Minister. So relations, it's in the larger interest of the country and the world that we, जो वसुंधरा कुटुंबकम का आइडिया है कि पूरा विश्व एक जो है फैमिली की तरह है, जो हमारा पीएम बोलते हैं, तो आई थिंक उसके आइडिया को उसकी स्पिरिट में हमें साथ में सबको मिलके चलना है एंड 2047 का जो विजन है उसको पूरा करने के लिए आई थिंक वी हैव टू बी friendly with all and as mentioned by other colleagues also that we have seen at G7 minutes bilateral talks have resumed between India and both sides, India and Canada, and because of the factors that we mentioned कि जो diaspora है trade तो ठीक है but diaspora इतना ज्यादा है cultural affinity इतना है इंडिया कनाडा का बीच में कि हम उसको इग्नोर नहीं कर सकते. जैसे आप साउथ एशिया में देखेंगे इंडिया पाकिस्तान या चाहे इंडिया बांग्लादेश हो इंडिया नेपाल और रोटी बेटी का रिश्ता उसी तरह इंडिया और कनाडा का है आपका बिल्कुल. पहले ट्रूडो कितना आपने देखा कि भंगड़ा और क्या क्या किस सब में वो पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे हैं. फेस्टिवल्स इतने इंडिया में भी नहीं हम मनाते हैं यूएस से जाते हैं या कनाडा तो वहां पे इतना लगता है कि एक एक फेस्टिवल लोहड़ी मन रहा है या कुछ भी इंडिया का एक एक फेस्टिवल आपका नवरात्रे मन रहे हैं जो इंडिया में भी हम लोग इतना ज्यादा नहीं मनाते क्योंकि वो तो कल्चरल एफिनिटी जो है इंडिया कनाडा में डायस्पोरा का जो इन्फ्लुएंस है दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि हमें रिश्ते अच्छे करने ही पड़ेंगे besides other economic factors.
Thank you so much for that insightful session. Now, I would like to welcome Professor Nagalakshmi M. Raman to distribute certificate among the panelists. We'll start with Dr. Rekha Saxena, ma'am. Then we have Dr. Sneha Bhagat. Mr. Kamran M. K. Mondo, sir. And last but not the least, the chair of our session, Dr. Shirish K. Pathak.
No.
Come this side, please. Subham, you come. Please, sir, please. You come.
I'll extend my heartfelt gratitude to our chair, panelists, and all of you in the audience for your active participation. I'll invite Dr. Shubham Verma, sir.
Okay. I know I'm very short on time, so I'll just make it a very quick vote of thanks. And it's my pleasure to actually deliver a formal vote of thanks over here. And especially on a topic which is very dear to me because I have been a student of Canadian studies. And I'm actually honored that my teachers are over here, those who have been there. Sneha ma'am, Preeti ma'am was there. So Mandal sir is here. So it's another feeling when you have your own professors who have been teaching. Rekha ma'am, I have listened to her
This last
so
one,
many
guys.
times.
Please make silence.
Yeah, just 1 minute. So it's an honor and privilege that such a beautiful panel was here in which they have highlighted all the nitty-gritties of India-Canada relations, right from the base which Professor Rekha Saxena ma'am has given about the democratic traditions between the two countries to what Professor Kamran sir has given us about the Canada's shift towards the Indo-Pacific and India being the bridge between the two, and what Sneha ma'am has beautifully outlined that how it over encompasses so many things, technology, diaspora, so many things are there. I mean, there are a lot of things which I can say over here, but then I would sincerely, Kumari Mansi, who joined us online despite her another schedule, who had been here. So she also highlighted about the two regimes which were there, and I give my deepest gratitude on the behalf of AIIS to all our esteemed delegates, and last not but the least, but our chair, who has very beautifully moderated this session. And yeah, Dr. Sharif Pathak, who has literally done this thing, and my dear students and audience who have been very patient. I'm very calm and sitting over here. Thank you all. Let's go for a break now, and then we'll reconvene for the valedictory session. Thank you so much.
Hello. Be seated. Your attendance will be taken.
Okay, just a quick announcement that we will be starting the valedictory
Your
session
attendance
right at 2 p.m. So be here by 1:50. So
And you have to be present at 2 p.m. for the last session of the day. Okay. Now you have to stay there where you are because your attendance will be taken. Later on, there should not be any report coming to me that you have missed your attendance. So it is your responsibility. If you are losing, if you are not mentioning your presence, then it is gone. Occupy the front seat. BA3 batch. Aryan Gambhir and team. Kaushal. CR सब अपने Hey, am I looking puffy? My, huh? मुझे लगता है I am not getting proper sleep. I think so. Signature. Okay.
Oh, you
Yeah,
go outside and announce the students to come in.
Acha, I will carry this mic outside. वो अपना house बंद है नहीं अभी मैडम लोगों को भी बुला लिया बताओ ऑफिस से लोग शांति से बैठी थी
Today's session for
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Amity Institute of International Studies, I, Valedictory Roy, along with my co-host, Vanchinath Rai, are immensely honored to have you all to the valedictory session of VIJIGISHU 2025, the sixth edition of our flagship international conference. Over the past 3 days, we have had diplomats, policymakers, scholars, and students from across India and beyond joining us to explore one big question. How is Asia shaping its presence in the Americas, and how is that transforming the global order?
The theme for this year's conference, Asia's Presence in the Americas, a multidimensional perspective, reflects a world in transition. Trade, technology, diplomacy, migration, and culture are all reshaping its ties across the Pacific and beyond borders. The conversations we have had here at VIJIGISHU 2025 have helped us look at these shifts in every angle. From geopolitics and security to cinema and cultural exchanges, the sessions have sparked fascinating debates on strategic cooperation, diaspora dynamics, sustainable development, and the future of multilateralism. It's been a space where ideas met insights and where young scholars like us got to learn directly from thoughtful leaders.
And that's exactly what makes VIJIGISHU special. It isn't just a conference, it's a platform that brings together the academic world, industry leaders, policy thinkers, and young researchers to discuss pressing global issues. As we begin today's session, we'll be hearing from truly distinguished voices who will leave us with reflections on their way forward, both for Asia America's relations and for global diplomacy at large.
We shall now proceed with felicitation of our distinguished guests with the token of gratitude. I invite Professor Dr. Nagalakshmi M. Raman, Vijikishu 2025 Chairperson and Director at Head, Amity Institute of International Studies, to kindly felicitate Professor Abdul Nafe with the token of gratitude. I invite Professor Dr. Nirupama Prakash to kindly felicitate Professor Abdul Nafe with the token of gratitude. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. I invite Professor Dr. Nagalakshmi M. Raman to kindly felicitate Professor Prakash with the token of gratitude.
Thank you, ma'am. I now invite Professor Shubham Dr. Verma, Vijikishu 2025 convener, to kindly felicitate Dr. Anjit Singh with a token of gratitude.
I invite Professor Prakash to kindly felicitate Dr. Sen with the token of gratitude.
Thank you, sir. To set the stage, we invite Dr. Shubham Verma to present the conference report capturing the highlights and key takeaways from the past 3 days.
We also welcome Major General Sudhakar Ji, BSM retired, to join us in the session.
Thank you.
In virtual mode.
Okay, thank you, Vanchi and Oretri. So, as we come towards the valedictory session of our VIJIGISHU 2025, based on the theme Asia's presence in the Americas, a multidimensional perspective. It is my honor to be here and to give a formal report reading for this event. And before I actually begin my formal report reading, I would like to take a moment and I would sincerely thank Professor Abdul Nafe over here because if we talk about Latin America in India, and if we talk about Canada in India, let's say, he is one of the pioneer academicians who have developed these studies in India, and people like me and Professor Mandal, we have been their students. So it is our honor, sir, that you have joined us here today and graced this event. And so this conference, it was actually a very challenging thing for us because our narrative first was focused on the other way around. As I mentioned on the first day, it was the America's presence in the Asia. But then we thought of looking at the Asia's imprint in the Americas. And now we stand here today after successfully completing all the technical session, all the plenary sessions which were planned over the course of 3 days. So our first day, it began with a very high tone energy with different ambassadors joining us. We have the Ambassador R. Vishwanathan, Ambassador Deepak Bhojwani, and Ambassador Virendra Gupta, who graced this occasion and set the narrative, set the tone for the conference by highlighting how the Americas is not only the United States; it is much more beyond the Americas. Sorry, much more beyond the United States. So that was the major highlight of the inaugural session, and we heard about India's tango with Latin America, a very keynote speech that was made by the our chief guest on that day, Ambassador R. Vishwanathan. So that was the major highlight, and that proceeded into the different technical session, parallel technical sessions rather. Technical session 1A, which was basically about the Asia, America, and the global environmental politics. And therein, after the deliberation of all the presenters who were there and the keynote chair who was there, Dr. Aparajita Kashyap, it was highlighted that Asia and Americas, all the countries in the Americas, they have a key role, especially under the South-South cooperation, in developing a narrative for the environmental politics that is happening all around the globe. So that was the major key take, that how India or the other Asian countries can collaborate with the different countries in Americas and could have a better understanding of global environmental politics on the multilateral forum. Parallelly, we had the technical session 1B, which was about the cinematic crossroads, literature, and philosophy in Asian American ties, and that basically highlighted how the Asian American relations, they basically transverses over the cinema, over the philosophy, and there is not only the security or the economic dimensions, but there is much more lenses through which we can actually see this special relationship between the two regions. Now the day ended with the plenary session 1, which was the India-US strategic partnership and global governance cooperation. A very burning issue rather because of the recent tariffs and the news in and around Trump, but we got to know through this plenary session 1 that it's this kind of downfalls in a country's relationship, it is a part and parcel of international politics. It is rather, the session, it rather ended on a very positive note that the relationship between the India and US, it will be mended, and it is just a moment of time that we are seeing this downfall. But at the same time, it was also highlighted that it is just the personality which had been a mismanager in this relationship. Otherwise, the trade, the other aspects of relationship has been stable and has been doing good. And this session was moderated by Ambassador Anil Turugnayat sir, and it was joined by different academicians and persons from the industry for their deliberations. The second day started with the parallel sessions, technical session 2A, in which it was about the India-US strategic equation in a multipolar world. This was chaired by Professor Satish Kumar, who joined us online, and after deliberating over all the presenters and the paper presenters, basically, it was also highlighted that how India-US cooperation transverses over different aspects or different perspectives. Parallelly, there was a technical session 2B, which was about the Asian diaspora in the Americas, and this was chaired by Dr. Nandakishore MS, and he also chaired this session online. And diaspora, which has been a very key factor of a very key factor in driving the Asian American relationship, was basically deliberated in this technical session, in which different presenters highlighted how the South Asian migrants, or from how diaspora to digital diaspora, things are changing. So overall, the technical session 2B also saw a success in which different narratives were raised and deliberated. After that, there was technical session 3A, which was about the India, China, ASEAN, and the Americas. It was chaired by Dr. Dhananjay Tripathi, and it saw how the different Asian countries had a role to play in the Americas, and the key highlight was the game theory and how the different theories, they basically drives this relationship and how it could be academically codified. Parallelly, there was a session 3B, technical session 3B on Asia, Americas, and the diplomacy across Pacific, which was chaired by Dr. Shubhamitra Das. And this basically highlighted how the Asian American ties transversed through the other side, which is the Indo-Pacific. Rather, this session was largely focused on the Asian American ties in the Indo-Pacific. The second day, was graced by the plenary session 2, which was basically India, Latin America, and Caribbean countries in the emerging geopolitical landscape. And now this session, this was honored by the ambassador of Guatemala to India, and he highlighted how the nitty-gritties of India-Guatemala relations has shaped the changing narratives of larger India-Latin American relation and Caribbean relations. It was chaired by our honorable head of the department, Professor Nagalakshmi ma'am, and this was the key highlight of the second day. The third day, which was today, it started with the technical session 4A, in which the first technical session 4A, it was the South-South Cooperation in Development and Governance. This was chaired by Ambassador of Argentina, His Excellency Mariano Cochino, and in this technical session, it was highlighted how India and Argentina could develop more bilateral relationship and how deeper this relationship is. And the presenters who presented their papers also highlighted how different narratives like strategic arms, the emerging geopolitical landscape, the Mexican Golden Triangle, and the other issues, how they affect or impact or rather develop the South-South cooperation. The technical session 4B, which was about beyond borders, strategic partnership, and soft power influences between Asia and the Americas. It was graced by Professor Preeti Singh, and this basically traversed through different papers which had the multiculturalism, which had the reciprocal soft power in India-US relation. It had the overlook of China. Then we had the India-Canada relation. So this particular session was a bit diverse, and it overlooked over and above the key highlights of this theme of the conference. The plenary session, this was followed by a plenary session 3, which was a final plenary session, and it was the India-Canada relations in a shifting global order. It was chaired by Dr. Shrees Pathak, and it was joined by eminent academicians from across the universities. And this session highlighted how India-Canada relations are shifting in this global order and how important these relations are. Even though there have been downfalls and there have been changes in these relations, but this entire narrative has been important to shape, and how these two countries, which has been the two democratic countries, India and Canada, they can take forward their legacy and how more they can develop their relation. So this was basically the brief highlight of VIJIGISHU 2025, all the technical sessions and all the plenary sessions which had happened over the past 3 days. And I am sure that once this session is over, all of us from here would be taking some insights and would be having new narratives on this very topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Verma, for precisely summarizing the insights and outcomes of discussions held over the past 3 days. Now, it's our pleasure to welcome Dr. Ayanjit Sen to deliver his address. Dr. Sen is a chief advisor at Red Lantern Analytica and a consultant on international relations, information warfare, communication intelligence, an award-winning international journalist, a renowned author, and a professor of practice at Bennett University. Dr. Sen has over 25 years of expertise in television, digital, radio, and print journalism and has worked extensively with BBC News, CNN International, Times Now Television, The Statesman, India Today Group, and the ABP. He is a regular panelist on TV prime shows with leading Indian news channels as international affairs expert. He is a regular invitee as a speaker on international relations and a trainer in communication intelligence for India's Border Security Force, Coast Guards, and other government agencies of India. Dr. Sen has worked extensively in UK, US, Bangladesh, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, France, Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Please join hands in welcoming Dr. Sen to deliver his address.
Good afternoon, Namaskar. I'd first like to take this opportunity to thank Professor Nagalakshmi ma'am, of course, because we have met earlier, and I would say this 3-day event has been a great success, no doubt on this. I think kudos to Professor ma'am, and you should give a round of applause for her. Professor Abdul Nafis Saab and Professor Dr. Nirupama Prakash, and of course Dr. Shivam Bharma, and we have online with us Major Sudhakarji. I would say that 6 years of VIJIGISHU was, this has been the 6th edition. So it has been going, I would say this edition particularly was, as far as, because since I was talking from a press perspective, I saw it in different news outlets, this of course, and I can say one more thing, that there's one more paper and a digital global site, the Sri Lanka Guardian, where you would see coverage of this event coming up within the next few days. And I would say the topic, I mean, overall, the discussion on Asia's presence in America, and really it has been from a multi-dimensional perspective, because I was here on the first day, and I would say I really enjoyed the session on that day, and though it was just on India US in my case, but I would like to say that thanks to all of you, and on behalf of Red Lantern Analytica, I would like to thank Professor Suvalakshmi ma'am and Amity University for organizing this great event, which has been a huge success. Another round of applause for ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sen, for showing us how academia and industry can work together to navigate global complexities. We are truly honored to welcome Major General Sudhakarji VSN, a doctorate officer and a distinguished strategic thinker. Commissioned into the Mahar Regiment in 1983, he served the Indian Army for over 37 years, holding key leadership positions including Brigade Commander in the Tawang sector, Division Commander in Eastern Ladakh, and Deputy Director General of Military Operations. A veteran of the Kargil conflicts, Operation Vijay, he led his company at the Siachen Glacier, successfully repelling enemy advances at altitudes as high as 22,000 feet in extreme sub-zero conditions. His career also includes notable roles in Operation Parakram, counter-insurgency operations in the northeast and Kashmir, and critical humanitarian missions like the evacuations of Indians from Iraq and Yemen. Beyond national services, General G represented India at the UN mission in Sierra Leone, where he played a pivotal role in demobilizing and rehabilitating child soldiers. For his exemplary contribution, General G has been awarded the Vishish Seva Medal, several commendations from the army chiefs, and the prestigious Mirza Raja Singh I Award in 2023. Post-retirement, General G continues to shape strategic discourse as a distinguished fellow at Clause and Strive, and serves as an expert advisor at CUTS International, sharing his deep expertise on Indo-Pacific maritime security and India's strategic relations. Please join hands and welcome Major General G to deliver his address.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I am audible to one and all. Okay.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. At the very outset, let me extend my sincere gratitude to Professor Dr. Nagalakshmi, ma'am, whom I met in one of the international seminars on Bangladesh few days back in New Delhi, and often having heard me, perhaps she would, either she was motivated to actually get me for this particular session, or she was inspired in continuity. I have been back to back in this particular event with Amity on different subjects. Although today, ladies and gentlemen, at the very outset, very distinguished guests of the Amity University and leading personalities, domain experts. I, as a veteran of the Indian Army, who has witnessed profound transformation of global power dynamics across decades of service, I am here to address one of the most consequential geopolitical phenomena of our era: Asia's comprehensive integration, not the presence that you all would have applied and discussed and deliberated. I am going to talk very briefly, and I am grateful to Professor Dr. Nagalakshmi for having extended and allotted little additional time to me. So my topic today in this session is going to be comprehensive integration into the Americas. This is not merely a story of immigration or cultural exchange, ladies and gentlemen. It represents the manifestation of a fundamental shift from the unipolar movement of the late 20th century to what I term the emerging multipolar reality of the 21st century. Understanding Cold War 2.0, with due respect to the limited time I have, ladies and gentlemen, let me share. I am a traveler after having retired. I've been traveling quite a few countries, interacting with the think tanks. What has actually emerged is that we are living through what historians may call Cold War 2.0, or geopolitical churn that is radically reshaping the international order. Unlike the bipolar confrontation of the 20th century, today's strategic competition is multidimensional, involving multiple great powers and characterized by the inexorable march towards multipolarity. This transformation is not abstract theory, it is measurable reality. In purchasing power parity terms, ladies and gentlemen, three of the world's top four economies, that is China, US, India, and Japan, it includes three major countries from Asia itself. They represent a historic shift. Asia today commands 60% of the world's population and 55% as per my research, but I am given to understand by my well-wishers it has gone up to 59% of the global GDP, a figure that would have been inconceivable during the heights of Western dominance. The economic data tells us even more compelling story. The BRICS economies having expanded their share of global GDP from 16%. I am quite conscious of the fact that the BRIC came into existence sometime close to 2007 and 8. But in 1995, if you total up the GDP of all the five members of the countries, it total up to roughly around 16% of the global GDP. And it has come up all a long way to a very impressive close to 44% in 2025. Simultaneously, ladies and gentlemen, and the future global leaders, the traditional G7 leading economies have witnessed a decline in the collective share from 43.6% in 1995 to a percentage which is as low as 28% in 2025. These are not marginal shifts. Do correct me if I am wrong in my statistics. They represent a fundamental reconfiguration of global economic power. Yet history teaches us caution. Ladies and gentlemen, multipolarity in the past during upheavals of World War I and World War II invariably led to unpredictability, the formation and the collapse of shifting alliances, culminating in conflicts that brought unprecedented death and destruction. This historical precedent makes it imperative that we study and understand today's multipolar transition with the utmost seriousness and analytical rigor. I am very sure and confident, although I couldn't be present physically, that due deliberation would have gone into all the aspects. Having seen the itinerary and the schedule of events, I must share with you that the 21st century has witnessed a crucial evolution from the traditional geopolitics of the 20th century towards what I term geoeconomics, where economic leverage, trade relationships, investment flows, and technological dominance increasingly determine strategic outcomes rather than conventional military power alone. Ladies and gentlemen, against the backdrop of recent global disruptions, COVID-19 pandemic, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and the Hamas-Israeli crisis, the global south is emerging as a stabilizing force. This is my deduction of my study and research, likely to drive the international order towards greater predictability and stability. The shift makes Asia's presence in the Americas not merely an interesting demographic phenomena, but a strategic reality that demands serious study for its relevance and application to our understanding of emerging global patterns. A very quick reflection from north to south. Let's start with the Canada's Asian demographic revolution. I'm sure they would have emerged during the deliberations during this 3 days, very important and mega international event. Canada, ladies and gentlemen, exemplifies this transformation most dramatically. The Asian Canadians now comprise 20.2% of the national population, making them the largest visible minority group. The Statistics Canada projects this will reach a figure of 26.9 to 27.5% by 2041, with immigrants and the descendants comprising over half the population. This isn't merely a demographic change. It represents a strategic transformation of national character that reflects broader Asian ascendancy. Ladies and gentlemen, having been to Vancouver myself, I have come across that the city has become a majority Asian city, with Chinese residents numbering over 500,000, South Asians approaching 640,000. In the Greater Toronto area, South Asians constitute 17% of the population, projected to reach more than 24% by 2041. From a strategic geo-economic perspective, Chinese investment in Canadian real estate has fundamentally altered the market economics. I'm skipping some of the parts, assuming that they would have been covered in the deliberation. Coming straight to the United States, the economic powerhouse and the political ascendancy. The Chinese in the American community comprise approximately 1.2% of US population with 5.4 million people, which demonstrates remarkable economic integration within America's technology innovation sectors. Chinese students constitute nearly 35% of all international students in American universities, with over 370,000 enrolled as of 2024. In Silicon Valley, where I was there 2 months back, in the high-tech sector, Chinese Americans represent approximately 15% of the workforce, contributing significantly to America's technological leadership through companies like Zoom, founded by Eric Yuan, and numerous unicorn startups. Ladies and gentlemen, if I do not share this part, perhaps I would be failing in my duty. I have come across very leading personalities in the Bay Area. Chinese Americans, they exhibit exceptional economic performance, with median household incomes reaching as high as $85,424, significantly above the national average of $70,784. There are many more details which I thought of contributing, but one single one-liner highlights that their contribution to the US economy extend beyond technology to finance, healthcare, manufacturing, with Chinese American-owned businesses generating over 200 billion annually in revenue. Ladies and gentlemen, a word about our diaspora, Indian diaspora in America, which provides perhaps the most compelling example of how demographic minorities can achieve disproportionate strategic influence through the economic excellence. Despite comprising only 1.5% of the population, that is 4.4 million people, Indian Americans contribute 5% of US tax revenue, hold 10% of US patents, own 60% of American hotels, lead 16 Fortune 500 companies, including Microsoft, Google, Adobe, and YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, the economic success directly translates into political power in ways that demonstrate the geo-economic paradigm at work. Indian Americans occupy over 4.4% of senior public service positions while representing only 1.5% of the population. The vice presidency of Kamala Harris represents the pinnacle of this integration, while figures like former governors Bobby Jindal and Nikki Haley demonstrate the community's politicality. Chinese investment in US real estate followed almost a very high level of patterns to Canada, with Chinese buyers becoming the largest foreign purchaser group since 2014. However, emerging Cold War 2.0 dynamics have reduced Chinese real estate investment by 23.6 billion since 2019. What about the Caribbean success story, ladies and gentlemen? As a military strategist, I find the Caribbean's transformation into an Asian political stronghold particularly instructive. Indians comprise 51% of Guyana's population, 40% of Trinidad and Tobago's, 35% of Suriname's. This demographic dominance has produced remarkable political leadership, and you name Chedi Jagan, Bharat Jagdeo in Guyana, Prime Minister Vasdev Pandey in Trinidad, Tobago, demonstrating how demographic weight can translate into sustained political control. This success story, ladies and gentlemen, originated from post-1833 indentured labor system that transported over 500,000 Indians to replace freed slaves. Let's come to Central American evolving Asian partnership. Ladies and gentlemen, Central America shows varying degrees of Asian integration that reflect broader geo-economic trends. Panama leads with 6% Asian population, which is around 160,000, with Chinese Panamanians constituting 4%, which is about 135,000 people, establishing one of Latin America's most significant Chinese community. In Costa Rica, the phrase "Vamos al Chino," meaning "let's go to the Chinese store," had entered a colloquial life. Mexico and Cuba, very quickly, let me reflect my experience in two of these countries. Mexico's relationship with Asian communities evolved from historical persecution to contemporary economic partnership, illustrating how geo-economic realities can overcome historical prejudices. Chinese immigration surged during the Porfirio Diaz era, 1880s to 1910, reaching 26,000 by 1920, before anti-Chinese sentiment caused deportations in 1930s, reducing the population to just about 618 by 1940. But I wish to highlight something very important here, that the contemporary Chinese migration has experienced dramatic resurgence driven by geo-economic factors. The Chinese population grew from 1,754 in 2000 to 11,000 by 2013, comprising 8.71% of all new permanent residents. This reflects Mexico's strategic position in Chinese global supply chains and the USMCA framework. Cuba, ladies and gentlemen, presents a unique case of ideological integration within the multipolar context. Chinese Cubans actively participated in the revolutionary forces, with figures like Lucy Lee, Juan Mock joining the 1953 Moncada barracks assault. They organized ethnic militia, including the Militia Popular China and Brigada Joswang, defending Isla de Pinos to prevent it from becoming another Taiwan, demonstrating how ethnic identity merged with the revolutionary nationalism in ways that prefigured today's complex multipolar alignments. Brazil's Asian gateway, ladies and gentlemen, Brazil is a country, it hosts the largest Japanese community outside Japan, which I'm sure you would have covered. Over 2 million people of Japanese descent. And coming on to the Chinese engagement with Brazil represents one of Latin America's most significant bilateral relationship, which exemplifies the geo-economic transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, China is Brazil's largest trading partner, with bilateral trade reaching 181.63 billion in 2023. Chinese investment exceeds 65 billion dollars spanning mining, energy, agriculture, manufacturing. Indian companies have invested over 6 billion in Brazil. What about Argentina, ladies and gentlemen? China has become Argentina's second largest trading partner with bilateral trade reaching 18.9 billion in 2023, Chinese investment exceeding 20 billion. Now, what about the Chile's position as a Pacific alliance, ladies and gentlemen? The country maintains free trade agreements with China, South Korea, Japan, with the Japanese companies accounting for 44% of total Asian foreign direct investment. Cultural revolution, the Korean web represents the most visible manifestation of contemporary Asia cultural influence and demonstrates how soft power operates in the multipolar era. The K-pop has achieved unprecedented popularity throughout Latin America, with Chile emerging as a regional hub. This extends beyond the entertainment to language learning, fashion, beauty products, and lifestyle adoption. Asian entertainment, ladies and gentlemen, content has achieved mainstream status throughout the Americas. Japanese anime, manga influence extends from Canada to Argentina. The global yoga boom, with 1 in 10 Americans practicing yoga by 2023, demonstrates Indian cultural influence extending far beyond diaspora, technology, and academic integration. Asian American academic integration has produced transformative research partnerships that exemplify the geoeconomic paradigm. Indian Americans contribute 13% of US scientific publications while comprising only 1.5% of the population. Chinese American scientists have established extensive collaboration networks connecting American institutions with center, though these face increasing scrutiny in the Cold War 2.0 context. Asian American entrepreneurs have established networks connecting American based innovation with Asian markets. Indian Americans lead 11% of US unicorn startups, while Chinese Americans have established venture capital funds and technology transfer organizations. Korean companies have established manufacturing facilities in Guatemala and Nicaragua, demonstrating how smaller Asian nations establish meaningful presence through targeted business investment. Ladies and gentlemen, Asian American political influence extends beyond individual electoral success to policy formation and institutional change. The 2024 elections demonstrated this influence, with Asian American candidates achieving record representation at federal, state, and local levels. Challenges in strategic consideration. Before I come to the conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, rising US China tensions create challenges for Chinese American communities, with individuals facing increased scrutiny despite American citizenship. These dynamics affect other Asian communities during international tensions, requiring sophisticated policy responses that protect security interests while safeguarding civil rights, a delicate balance essential in the multipolar world. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to highlight here that the Asian communities face ongoing tensions between cultural preservation and mainstream integration. The success of Korean culture products demonstrates how Asian cultures can achieve mainstream appeal while maintaining distinctiveness, offering lessons for managing diversity in multipolar society. The historical precedent of multipolar instability demands careful attention. The formation and collapse of alliances that characterized the early 20th century's multipolar movements and polycentric world led to catastrophic conflicts. Today's challenge is managing multipolar transition without repeating historical patterns of instability. And finally, I come to the strategic conclusions navigating the Asia century in the Americas. From a geopolitical perspective, Asia's presence in the Americas represents the manifestation of fundamental hemispheric transformation that embodies the broader shift towards multipolarity defining the 21st century. This integration, ladies and gentlemen, it extends beyond immigration to comprehensive social, economic, and political transformation that reflects Asia's rising share of global population and GDP. The economic dimension is particularly significant and demonstrates the triumph of geoeconomics over traditional geopolitics. Asian investment entrepreneurship, trade relationships have become essential to American prosperity. From Chinese infrastructure investment in Latin America to Indian technology companies in North America, Asian economic engagement creates employment finances development, and introduces innovation. The political dimension demonstrates the maturation of Asian integration within democratic framework. Ladies and gentlemen, the cultural dimension reveals how soft power operates in the multipolar era. Korean cultural exports, Indian spiritual practices, and Japanese entertainment content have achieved mainstream acceptance, creating people to people connections that provide stability even when government relations were strained. Looking forward, Asia's America's presence will deepen as demographic trends, economic integration, and cultural exchange expand. The success of existing Asian communities provides integration models while establishing infrastructure supporting continued growth. This transformation represents the emergence of truly global societies where Asian and American cultures, economies, and political systems become increasingly integrated. From a soldier to a student geopolitics now, ladies and gentlemen, I observe that the Asia's presence in the Americas transcends traditional North-South frameworks, creating complex and multidimensional and multidirectional relationships based on mutual benefit and shared prosperity. This model provides lessons for global integration extending far beyond Western Hemisphere to influence worldwide development patterns. However, we must retain and remain cognizant of multipolarity's historical association with instability. The challenge for contemporary statesmen and strategists is to learn from successful Asian integration in Americas characterized by economic collaboration, cultural exchange, and political participation to build frameworks for managing multipolar competition without descending into conflicts that marked earlier multipolar eras. The Global South's emerging role as a stabilizing force, demonstrated through institutions like BRICS and the growing influence of Asian American communities in democratic processes, offers hope that this multipolar transition can be managed more peacefully than historical precedents suggest. In conclusion, what I would say is that the Asia strategic presence in the Americas is not simply a regional phenomena, it is the local manifestation of the global shift towards multipolarity that defines our era. Understanding this transformation in all its dimensions demographic, economic, political, cultural is essential for navigating the complexities of Cold War 2.0 and building a stable multipolar world order. The success of Asian integration in the Americas demonstrates that the multipolarity need not inevitably lead to conflict if managed through frameworks that emphasize economic cooperation, cultural exchange, and inclusive political participation. Ladies and gentlemen, this provides a template for managing broader great power relations in an increasingly multipolar world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, General G, for sharing your inspiring vision. Now, it's our honor to welcome Professor Abdul Nafi to deliver his valedictory address. Professor Nafi is a distinguished professor from Jawaharlal Nehru University, where he made significant contributions to the study of language, linguistics, and comparative literature. His expertise spans African, Australian, and Canadian literature, reflecting his deep engagement with diverse culture and literacy traditions. Currently, Professor Nafe serves as the editor at Foreign Affairs Journal, where he continues to shape critical discourse on international relations and global affairs. Over the years, his research, teaching, and publications has influenced students, scholars, and practitioners alike, making him a respected voice in both academia and policy circles. Professor Nafe would deliver his address covering the Latin America's engagement with China in contemporary world order. Over to you, sir. Whichever is
I have three papers. Long, longer, longest. Which one should I inflict upon you? I am grateful to Professor Nagalakshmi for the invitation, a very soft, kind invitation she sent. I agreed. Immediately, once I saw her email, I must congratulate you for organizing this wonderful exercise over the last 3 days. Shubham is a hard taskmaster. I wrote 3 papers, but he put his foot down. Sir, you won't get more than 10 minutes. I am really fortunate. Once I saw this revised program, he has been very kind to me, has given me 15. With this words, let's start really moving. Asia's presence in America's very vast subject. Lumping together 3 complex continents is not an easy task. I was also asking myself, Asia's presence in the Americas, what about America's presence in Asia? Again, I told myself, all this is beyond me. Shubham has been very kind that I'm a founding figure in terms of Latin American and Caribbean studies in India. I'm also a founding person who really put the seeds of Canadian studies in India. I had given him a choice. He says, either I speak on this subject or you can push me into the panel on Canada also. He says, here. Now with these few words, let me really look into, I'm trying to make the subject somewhat manageable. And therefore, we had agreed that let me speak on China and Latin American partnership. While I am looking into China's presence in Latin America and the Caribbean, vice versa, I'll also be covering few points. And if necessary, in between, I'll inject a little bit of India too. Because in the last 3 days, so many papers have been on India and Latin America, Vishwanathan, Bhojwani, and so many other, and so many ambassadors came. That was really very impressive. I wish I had been here. Now, what I have done is, like in a game of cards, once you have strong cards, you say, show. I have done that. I am putting all my cards straight on the table because I know I am winning the game. I am starting with the conclusion. I am an editor also. I have edited the articles written by very distinguished professors and sometimes send them back. Sir, not our cup of tea. Thank you for your interest. So, my 2 simple conclusion. And one reason, I decided that I would speak from here because I would like to address the last of the students who is at the back of this hall. Let me start with the conclusion. And honestly, I'll just keep myself 2 conclusions and 4 or 5 points after that so that I finish my presentation in the required 12 to 15 minutes. China is massively present in that. In terms of scale and depth, this is something which Latin America has not witnessed in the last 200 years of its independence. And Latin Americans are happy about it. Now, my one conclusion, partnership with China is enhancing Latin America's strategic autonomy and standing in the global world. For the last 200 years, Latin America has been in search of an autonomous role in world affairs. China is making it possible. And therefore, I can see that there is some enduring interest on both the sides to sustain the partnership which they have. For the first time, Latin America has entered into relationship with a country which is a non-European power, which itself is a developing economy, which calls itself the leader of the global south, and equally important, it has entered into relationship with a country which itself has seen colonial rule, exploitation and domination. Meaning therefore, the China-Latin America equations hopefully should assume a very different dimension. My second conclusion is that Latin America is watching with deep interest developments in Asia. Especially organizations like Brazil, Russia, India, China, the BRICS grouping, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. 25 countries met at Tianjin. Just look at the size, the population, the GDP. 25 countries. And they gave a call for a UN-based multilateral order. A world trading system which should be rule-based. No arbitrariness. No weaponization of tariff. Online, Brazil organized a BRICS summit. How to explore the alternative payment system. Don't blame these countries. Some $350 billion of Russian money in American treasury has been confiscated, frozen. Every country said, look, why we should put our money into the American treasury funds. 25 countries met and gave a call for a different global governance system based on UN. A reformed World Trade Organization where countries could trade more equally and more equitably. No weaponization of trade, no weaponization of sanctions, no weaponization of tariffs. Compare it with what happened at the G7 summit in Washington, D.C. The headmaster had called the 6 other kids for a scolding. All G7 leaders in White House were speaking in English and with their heads drawn down. What does it indicate? Perhaps it is a handover moment in international relations. Governance has already shifted or is about to shift towards Asia, India, China, Russia. G7 pale compared to what is happening in this. And that explained why Latin America is watching Asia very closely and intently. These were the 2 conclusions. After this, I can race. China has offered Latin America a very new model of development through its Belt and Road Initiative, or what we call Silk Roads. This is different from what Latin Americans had experimented in the past. Import substitution, industrialization, policies of self-reliance, comparative advantage based model of development that you export resources. China has brought some new ideas. Latin America is one of the more poorly developed region in terms of infrastructure. China is changing that. Ever since 2013, when China announced the Belt and Road Initiative, out of 193 UN member countries, about 150 are signatory to the Silk Road projects. You can just guess where the movement of history is taking place. It is always difficult to predict the future, but still one can perhaps see where the future is moving. A new world is emerging, it looks to be, and all of us are witness to this historic moment. 150 countries. In Latin America, 21 out of 26 eligible countries which can become a member of Belt and Road Initiative are already part of the Belt and Road Initiative. And those who are not, like Brazil or Mexico, actually are getting special and very privileged treatment from China. So China is changing the geopolitics and economics of Latin America through infrastructure building. Just few months back, a deep sea port in Peru was inaugurated called Chanque, which is a game changer. I was told that in Delhi and Noida, Peruvian cherries became available thanks to this port which clears the goods so fast. In fact, I have the data a little older, say 2005, 2020. China spent roughly $94 billion in some 138 infrastructure projects in Latin America. Roads, ports, railways, digital, Silk Road. And the good thing is that Chinese companies which are involved in Latin America infrastructure building, they have one of the highest rates of completion of projects on time. All of us are witness how projects in India get over delayed and how cost escalation takes place. We say a road will be built in 5 years and 15 years after, still we don't see much. Somewhere there is a problem of logistics, of organizations. Chinese have conquered many things. As a result of this, Latin Americans are asserting their freedom. They are not listening to American threats. Starting 2017, first term of President Donald Trump, Latin American countries in very large number broke off relations with Taiwan and set up relations with China. Americans had been telling, don't do that. Chinese are entrapping you in debt. China is an authoritarian country. It is exporting its authoritarian values, but Latin Americans are not listening because they are seeing something else in terms of when it comes to relationship with China. Here, China is a very strange diplomatic power. Somebody we must study how they really conduct their diplomacy. They have different methods and different strategies for different regions and within a region for each country. A small country like Dominica, just 70,000 population, his prime minister went to Beijing. He was received with the same protocol as a prime minister of, say, Nigeria or a president of Brazil would be received. Same 60-second handshake, same 30 to 40 minutes one-to-one talk, then delegation level talk. And again Chinese were insisting, look, we are equal partners. Otherwise, nobody would bother. Where is Dominica? And I'm saying Dominica, not Dominican Republic. Dominican Republic is a very large country, but Dominica, very small, tiny island. So, Chinese are approaching Latin America with varieties of diplomatic strategies and packages. At Tianjin SCO summit, China announced that Shanghai Cooperation Organization would have its own development bank also. My own assessment of the situation is a time is coming when China would also announce a development bank for Latin, which would be a very significant milestone in terms of China-Latin America relations. Already China select Latin American Caribbean Community of Latin American Caribbean Countries, CELAC, I call it CELAC. Already it has become a mechanism for norm setting, dialogue between China and 33 countries of Latin America and the Caribbean. I have 2 minutes more. Trade. It all began with trade. To cut the story short, somebody was asking me this thing. Last year, China-Latin American trade was $518 billion. Look at India-Latin American trade last year, maybe $25 billion, perhaps 30. The league is very different. China is playing in a very different league with the Latin America, and India is playing in a very different league. Of course, there are some very interesting and promising aspects of India's engagements with Latin America, but the scale and depth of China's engagement is very different. And number of countries have concluded free trade agreements with China. A number of countries are queuing up to have free trade agreements with India, with China. And trade has impacted the politics and society. Between 2001 and 2012, Latin America went through an unprecedented cycle of growth. Never in the 200 years history of Latin America, the entire continent had economically grown as fast as it did between 2001 and 2012. Society changed. Urban middle class expanded hugely. Millions came out of poverty. Several millions became part of what we in India would call a lower middle class, self-employed young men and women who were doing something or the other and living comfortably. Trade changed Latin American society. Highest enrollment at the university level was in Latin America during this period. Worldwide, if you compare, young boys and girls had money to go to a college and pay their tuition. So trade had many ripple effects on politics and society. Pink tide regime, the leftist regime we call them, it was thanks to trade with Latin America that countries like Venezuela, Ecuador or Bolivia had surpluses to spend on social issues. पैसा होगा तभी तो खर्च करेंगे ना आपके ऊपर. There was some money. People began calling them not communist or red, but as pink tide regimes. 21st century socialist governments. 21st century socialist governments, Venezuela, Ecuador, Bolivia, all had very close trade ties, investment ties with China. Trade agreements with so many countries. Latin America is very keen to have these free trade agreements. Why? They are flexible. They can be renegotiated depending on the changing domestic situation. Phases can be shortened or prolonged. And above all, these trade agreements have really benefited that. Chile has a free trade agreement with China. Services exports from Chile to China increased 25% per annum since 2017. A small country. Chile is not a very big country. Today, Chile is the #1 exporter of wine to China. No French wine, no Italian, no Argentine. They have taken over. our trade agreements have benefited Latin America. That's why so many countries want to have trade agreements with them. To be honest, China has added to the financial autonomy of Latin America. China gave $187 billion over 2 decades of 2003 and 22 in the form of loans, assistance, and investments. China gave more aid and assistance to Latin America than all the multilateral financial institutions put together. You apply to the World Bank for a loan to have a bridge, say in Noida. 1 feasibility study, 2 feasibility study, 3 feasibility studies. And nothing comes. And they say, look, this is not in our purview. Chinese have really come forward. I think I'm on the last point now. Yeah. Finally, something more meaningful is happening. Somebody was asking me about the value chains and where does India stand. Something surprising is happening and we are going to witness its consequences in the next few years. China is integrating artificial intelligence and other fourth industrial revolution technologies and implementing them into services, manufacturing, agriculture, and pastoral activities. And it is bringing those technologies to Latin America. The world first smart mine, Chinese built up in Peru. Safeguards, assessments, everything. Argentine football stadium in Buenos Aires. First smart stadium where I am told spectators have very close interpersonal interaction. I don't know how it happens. You are sitting here, somebody is sitting there in the stadium and you are chatting with each other. Some 500 or 600 persons can enter into the stadium per minute or per second. Everything is digital. You don't show your ticket. They just look at your eyes. And you are cleared. Come in. China is maintaining the highest space infrastructure outside mainland China in Latin America. You go to Brazil, you will find Chinese electric vehicles. They are manufacturing them not for exports, but to be sold within the region. This transition to green technology is taking place. What I am saying is, Chinese have come, they are not giving some archaic, dated technology. They are sharing the same AI-based technology with Latin America, which they share with their own people at home. And there's something transformative. Latin Americans are keen, therefore, to build relation with China. What Chinese call community of a common destiny. And perhaps, therefore, I won't be surprised if Latin Americans are telling themselves, look, this is once in a century opportunity. Seize it and transform it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your insights. It's our privilege to now welcome Professor Dr. Nirupama Prakash. Professor Prakash is a distinguished sociologist and Dean of Social Sciences in Amity University. Professor Prakash has a rich international teaching experience, having served at George Washington University, the University at Buffalo, and the University of Maryland in the United States. She also undertook postdoctoral research in medical sociology in the Hartshill Medical Institute, UK. With numerous publications to her credit, her expertise spans sociology, gender studies, health systems, and conflict management, making her one of the leading voices in her field. Please welcome Professor Prakash to deliver her remarks.
Thank you so much. Well, it is with our gratitude to Honorable Founder President Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, our very dynamic Chancellor Dr. Atul Chauhan, our respected Vice Chancellor Professor Dr. Balvinder Shukla, that with their vision and with their support we are able to organize such important events. Very distinguished ambassadors and eminent speakers, esteemed colleagues, faculty, scholars, students and guests. It gives me immense pride and joy to stand before you this afternoon at the valedictory session of VIJIGISHU 2025, Asia's Presence in the Americas, a multi-dimensional perspective. Over the past 3 days, we witnessed a vibrant confluence of diplomacy, scholarship, and youthful enthusiasm that has truly embodied the spirit of Amity University's global vision. This conference has brought together eminent ambassadors, seasoned diplomats, distinguished academicians, young scholars, and enthusiastic students to deliberate upon some of the most pressing issues shaping the evolving ties between Asia and the Americas, and from discussions on strategic partnerships and governance framework to diaspora linkages, cultural dialogue, environmental diplomacy, and economic cooperation, the deliberations have been both rich and insightful. What stands out is how the youth and the scholars of Amity and our partner institutions have engaged with diplomats and policy practitioners not as passive listeners, but as active contributors to debates that will define the world order of tomorrow. This academic diplomacy, bridging classrooms and corridors of power, is at the very heart of what we strive to nurture in the Faculty of Social Sciences. I take pride in how the Amity Institute of International Studies has once again demonstrated its capacity to lead meaningful dialogue at the global level. The faculty in the domain of social sciences is committed to advancing interdisciplinary knowledge that blends international relations, public policy, sociology, economics, political science, cultural studies into a holistic vision of global understanding. The success of this conference proves that when faculty leadership, student initiative, and institutional support converge, the results are transformative. I applaud our convener, Dr. Shubham Verma, our dedicated AIIS faculty team, and above all, our students whose tireless effort made this event possible. Deep appreciation for Professor Nagalakshmi Raman, Director, Amity Institute of International Studies, who is spearheading this important. Excellencies and colleagues, as we look at Asia's presence in the Americas, one cannot miss the broader lesson. The world is entering an era of the interconnected multipolarity. Asia and the Americas are not just geographical regions separated by oceans, they are dynamic partners in shaping the 21st century. For our students and young scholars, this is both for an opportunity and a responsibility to think beyond borders, to research with purpose, and to engage with policy, not as distant observers, but as future leaders. As we conclude this journey, let us carry forward the spirit of dialogue, collaboration, and innovation that has defined this conference. May the deliberations here not end with these sessions, but inspire research, partnerships, and policies that strengthen the bridges between Asia and the Americas. On behalf of the domain and Faculty of Social Sciences, I thank each one of you, our esteemed guests on the dais and off the dais, all for your kind presence and contributions. Together, let us continue to make Amity University not only a hub of knowledge, but also a beacon of global engagement. Thank you, and I wish you all the very best in your academic and professional journey. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your thoughts with us. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the moment we have all been waiting for. We now move on to the results of all the sessions of VIJIGISHU 2025. Before I announce the winners, I would like to take a moment to appreciate the hard work and dedication of all the participants. Each one of you brought something unique to the table, and your effort was truly encouraged in this conference. Now, I would like to announce the winners for the best paper, Technical Session 1A. Dr. N. Sai Balaji. Next, the winner for the Best Paper Technical Session 1B is Dr. Pavan Kumar. For Technical Session 2A, Dr. Nand Kishore Yadav. For 2B, we have Vanshinathan Rai. For Session 3A, the winner for the Best Paper is Dr. Dominic. For Session 3B, we have Ms. Shikha Swaraj. For Session 4A, we have Ms. Muskan. And finally, we have Amitabh Bhagat as the winner for the Best Paper in Session 4B. Congratulations to all the winners and participants. We hope this recognition inspires you to keep pushing boundaries and striving for the excellence. With this, we conclude the results for this session. Thank you.
As we reach the final moments of this enduring journey of VIJIGISHU 2025, it's time to express our deepest gratitude to everyone who made this conference a success. To do so, we are truly honored to invite Professor Raman, Conference Chair, to deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Very good evening. It's really very hard to be at the end and then speak. Okay. So, respected Founder President Sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor Ma'am, distinguished Ambassador, eminent speakers, esteemed faculty, research scholars, and my very dear students. Now, as we draw the curtains of 6th edition of VIJIGISHU 2025, Asia's guys, I'll become more emotional. Asia's presence in the Americas, a multidimensional perspective, it is really my privilege as a conference chair to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks on behalf of AIIS. Our deepest gratitude to our founder president, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, for his vision. Our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Ma'am, Professor Dr. Balwinder Shikla, Group Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Gurinder Singh, and my beloved Dr. Nirupma Prakash, the Dean of Social Sciences, for their continuous, constant guidance and support. We are really honored by the participation of ambassadors from Guatemala and by the insight of former envoys of Ambassador Deepak Bhojwani, Ambassador Virender Gupta, Ambassador R. Vishwanathan, and of course a special mention to our Ambassador Anil Trugnath, who ably moderated a plenary session 1. Warm thanks to our esteemed partners, Embassy of Brazil, New Delhi, Red Lantern Analytica, and also I'd like to add here our knowledge partners, JNU, IGNO, University of Delhi, Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute, ICWA, Diplomacy and Beyond Plus, and CGALS, Center for Global Affairs and Leadership Studies. We are grateful for contribution from Dr. Ayanjit Sen, Major General Sudhakar Ji, Professor Abdul Nafi, whose perspective enriched the policy and practitioner lens. And I would like to extend here a very special appreciation to every paper presenter, the faculty members and students, and thank you for constructive spirit that defined VIJIGISHU 2025. I also thank the organizing committee and all colleagues who worked tirelessly across the invitation, schedules, protocol, hospitality, and documentation. My heartfelt thanks to our faculty leaders who guided the student teams at every step. Now, I would like to take the names of the faculty along with them. I want the students to either to stand up at their place or be here on the forefront if you can do it without disturbing. So, and I would request the dignitaries on the dais to please step down and give these certificates for my students and faculty members. It's my request, please. First and foremost, I would like to call upon Dr. Alina Thomas for logistics, along with Mr. Hitochit, Anshika, Amulya. Are they here? And of course, it's not only these three, there are teams are there. I can't take everybody's name. Please bear with me for that. Second, I would like to call upon Dr. Ashriti Gautam for MC and Deputy. Along with her, the students were Shivanshi Rautri, Aritri Roy, Rohit K. If you can come quickly. And of course, the team is there, as I said. I'd like to call upon Dr. Shirish Pathak for stage management, Letitia, Nirkan, and of course the team members. Please join team members. I'm not taking the name, but that doesn't mean that you are not part of it. You are part of it. Dr. Shirish Pathak, you have to take. Then I will call upon Dr. Debashish Das for hall management, Aradhna Chauhan, Swapnil Tiwari and team. Are they here? Please stand up at your place if you can't come over here. Hall management, please come. And for technical team, I call up Dr. Gokul Pace, Ms. Mark Tenzing, and of course all team members. Please. Dr. Motswan Tulangi, the team members, student Aditya Kailash, Aniksha Monga and team. Dr. Motswan Tulangi, Dr. Akriti Kajuria, Vanchi Nathan, Paulina, Mishti Sinha. This is for design team. This is a design team. Then I call upon a registration desk and outreach, Dr. Devina Singh, Anshin Thomas, Malvika, Bhanvi Mathur, Now I call upon the hospitality Dr. Ashok Sadasivan, the most vibrant team, Mrinalini, Ashutosh and team, every visitor, every person appreciated this hospitality team for excellent deliberation of their duties. I appreciate each one of them in the team. Doctor, why don't you join? Join, please. Kindly excuse me if I missed out some names. I have not taken all the names, but each one of you have contributed a lot on this. So our student volunteer brigades have been a phenomenal one. So hospitality, operational logistics, design, social media, on-ground support, your energy was the heartbeat of this conference. A special acknowledgement for our overall coordinators, Mr. Hitochit and Vanchinathan. Mr. Hitochit is here. He worked almost day and night. Mr. Hitochit and Vanchinathan. Okay. Then I would also like to extend a special thank to my office staff, Ms. Rupashri, Daya Krishna, Ankit, for their resilient background support. Please stand up. And we also appreciate the IT team for flawless technical support and the administrative staff for impeccable logistics and hospitality. I'll fail in my duty if I don't represent or recognize my own leader, Dr. Shubham. A special appreciation for my convener, Dr. Shubham Verma. Your leadership, your coordination, endurance, and conceptualization in execution have anchored the bringing the conference from end to end meet. Now, kindly take your seats. As we conclude, let me conclude first, yeah? You have to allow me to speak. This is my day. As we conclude, let us carry forward the spirit of dialogue, collaborations, and innovation that VIJIGISHU 2025 has embodied. May these conversations inspire a new research partnership and policies that strengthen Asia-America's relations. Now, with the gratitude, I invite all the esteemed dignitaries on the dais, yes, of course, faculty members, volunteers, best paper awardees to join us for high tea and continued network. Embassy of Brazil has extended support, especially for this session, by hosting Brazilian cuisine. So I wish you guys enjoy that. Thank you and Jai Hind.
I'll just take, thank you. I'll just take 2 minutes, ठीक है? And I'll be very honest, I'll speak from the heart. देखो आज ये सारे students और सारे volunteers नहीं होते तो ये conference नहीं होती. I mean, this has happened only because of you your continuous efforts, and तभी हो पाया. It is you people, you guys. And of course, my lovely colleagues, my teaching faculties, my staff member, Daya, Ankit. I mean, they have been incredible in giving me the support. अगर मैं एक चीज छोटी सी याद करूंगा आज, I remember when this thing was given to me very initially, VIJIGISHU, and seeing the last year success, I was like, कैसे हो? This was my first immediate thought कि कैसे होगा? And I remember Sri Sir's word कि अरे चिंता मत हो जाए. Then over the days as it passed, and then Maya ma'am, Rupashri ma'am used to say, अरे सर क्यों टेंशन लेते हो जाएगा, rock करोगे आप, ठीक है. Then of course all the members, if I could recall, students, Vanchi in fact used to say, अरे सर क्यों टेंशन लेते हो जाएगा, टेंशन मत लो. Then I mean this kind of support that I have got from each one of you, all these students, when I used to go to class and used to speak a bit about this, like sir, don't worry, it will all happen. So this continuous support, Ankit is standing there. रोज इवनिंग में मुझे यही बोल के बता रहे सर टेंशन मत हो जाएगा, ठीक है. दया, I think he is not here, but then again, and of course we must not forget our own Mary ma'am. टेंशन होती थी कि प्रोग्राम शेड्यूल चेंज हो रहा है, कुछ हो रहा है, something or the other was there, but then at the end like Dr. Shivam, don't worry, at the end we'll manage, हो जाएगा. And I think for the past 3 days we have been doing that only, and we have done a very incredible job, all thanks to you. And again, thanks to Rukma ma'am, Anjit sir and Nafe sir for being here, for extending the support, and all the professors that joined us over the days. I know थोड़ी बहुत इधर उधर चीजें होती रहती प्रोग्राम में, but over and above the love, the support that all of you have rendered upon us, that has made this program a successful one. बस अब ज्यादा नहीं बोलूंगा. Please let's go out, have tea, and thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Raman and Dr. Verma, for sharing your heartfelt words and leading this conference with success and vision. See you all again in the 7th edition of VIJIGISHU 2026. Yeah.